thank you very much for the introduction. I don't know if anyone noticed the bell that was ringing. I think it was timed very well when he started talking about the dangers of noise as well. But talking about the bell on another area, something that I only recently found out in the UK, when someone passed away due to old age, they used to bury them with a little bell just like that. And it was because modern technology, they were unsure as to whether people had passed away or not. They just didn't know. So occasionally, someone walking in a graveyard may hear a little bell go like that, so hopefully that won't make any resemblance of my talk today. Okay. First, I'd like to thank the organisers of the event for allowing EBRD to come here today and talk to you. I will try and be as quick as I can, and I'm always very conscious of when someone puts me on as the last speaker before a coffee break. Although there's two things I really want to talk about just briefly before I cover the EBRD expectations. And the first one is, as a health and safety professional, I have been working in the area of health and safety for 15, 20 years. I occasionally have the odd day where I feel as things aren't going right. I can't motivate or influence management. I'm sure we've all had these days. And sometimes I question as to why am I doing this job? Why am I doing it? Well, there's two reasons really. The first one is, for days like today, I think it's great to come to events like this and meet individuals who have all got a common goal, a goal of actually saving lives. The second, for me, was something that it occurred last week. A friend of mine who I've known for many years was diagnosed with an asbestos-related condition. And he's only 50 years old, and a very fit gentleman, doesn't smoke, but it just realized, it brought it home to me again. This is someone I know. This is someone, because of some sort of working conditions weren't correct years ago, that he's now exposed to asbestos, and now he's going to die. And I saw him when he got diagnosed only a week ago, and he's going through chemotherapy now. And he is absolutely frightened. He don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we all like to think modern technology the way it is, that the survival rate will improve, but I just don't think we're there yet. So there are two reasons why I get up in the morning and I do like coming to work. Anyway, I'll move on. So the EBRD, just to give you a bit of a background about who we are, where we are, what we do. First thing I will say is I am a health and safety professional. I'm not a banker, and I do not receive large bonuses. The bank itself was founded in 1991 by the French Prime Minister at the time, and it was basically, they realized there was an issue with regards to, from the fall of communism, to try and bring investment into these countries, and that's why the bank was basically set up. It's an international financial institution, and there are many around, such as the IFC, the World Bank, but the EBRD has got a specific mandate, which I'll talk a little bit about shortly. What we do is we support projects in over 30 different countries, and that is actually expanding now into areas like North Africa and the Middle East, so I'm not sure how long we're going to keep the name as the European Bank. Maybe it will be abbreviated to EBRD, because it doesn't really give you an idea on where we are actually operating. We do invest mainly in private sector businesses, but we do get involved in working with, at the government level, on the construction of infrastructure projects, whether it be wastewater treatment works, whether it be road infrastructure, and these sometimes are obviously funded through governments. And who owns us? Well, Macedonia. Macedonia is one of the stakeholders within EBRD, along with 63 other different countries, and 2 intergovernmental organisations, which include the EU and the European Investment Bank. So I'm here today as a sort of international civil servant, and I'm proud to be here as well. So our mandate at EBRD, we will only work with countries that have or committed to democratic principles, and projects must respect the environment. Now, I use the word environment a bit loosely because what we talk about when we think about environment, we think about climate change, we think about pollution, but we think about public health as well, and we also think of the environment that our projects are invested in. So we cover the work-related aspect, including health and safety. Types of projects that we're involved in vary huge amounts. Laboratories, quarries, wood processing, oil and gas, heating, electrical, you name it. I think EBRD is probably has one project in one of our regions of operations, and these projects need help. As you know, obviously, when I go and see various different clients and I speak to them that they need to improve this, they need to improve that, the biggest problem, the biggest challenge they have is, well, you know, how can we do it? We have no money. Well, to a certain extent, yeah, there is a need for investment, and obviously EBRD will come in, and we will only get involved in a project if we know there's enough money there to ensure that things like worker controls, health and safety is covered. And that's something that obviously what I do in my day job. So we operate in, I think it's about 35 different countries now, as you can see, and we stretch across Russia all the way to Mongolia, North Africa, and the Middle East. And at a glance, just to give you an idea of where we are at the moment, we have 30 billion in capital, 65 different shareholders, including, as I mentioned, Macedonia, 34 countries of operation. We have just over 2,000 staff, and a majority of those are based in London, but we do have resident offices, including one in Skopje. Within my team, and I'm in London, we're all based in London, we have 19 environmental specialists, 6 social specialists, and 1 safety specialist. I think that's a little bit wrong, personally, because I might be biased, but I do feel that there's a need to focus more on health and safety. But saying that, if we look at other international financial institutions, they don't have any health and safety specialists, not one. EBRD, before I joined them 3 years ago, recognised there's a need to improve this. The board of directors basically said, what are we doing about all these accidents? What are we doing about all these people that are being killed on the projects we're investing in? And that's where I came in. I was brought in 3 years ago, a very tough job, a very demanding job, and sometimes it's a little bit unacknowledged as well. And as you could be aware, sometimes people don't pat you on the back and say you're doing a good job. Because when it comes to health and safety, you doing a good job means nobody dies. If you're doing a bad job, believe me, I'm sure they'll come and tell you that something's wrong. Okay, so my role, as I mentioned before, I'm involved in project appraisal and monitoring. So when we invest in projects, what I actually do is I will look at where the company is, where they should be, and how to get there. So we develop action plans and work with our clients to ensure that they can improve better controls and make sure their workers are protected. I provide advice and guidance to clients, and we also actually develop technical cooperation projects where we can actually provide funding for maybe training or various things like that. I'm raising health and safety awareness within my organisation, and this is something which was, I suppose, alien to a lot of the bankers out there. There is no bankers in the building, are there? So I can talk quite openly. One thing that struck me, a majority of the people that work at EBRD are from the regions we operate, places like Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and they're all countries that, when it comes to health and safety, they don't really take too much notice. Oh, you know, someone's going to die on this project, you know, we'll get someone else in. And that just seemed to be the attitude, and I thought, well, this is terrible, this is absolutely terrible. So one thing that I've been doing for the past 2 years is raising awareness within our bank as well, to make sure that the bankers, these people are actually trying to help companies appreciate what we're actually doing. And it is unacceptable for someone to actually be injured. And it is unacceptable for people to suffer injury or ill health in any way. And I also engage with stakeholders to basically, like events like here. I want to know what's going on. Sometimes when I go out to a particular project, whether it be in Macedonia or Serbia, I'm only there for a day, half a day sometimes. They take a quick tour of the site facilities. Normally they know when we're coming, so everything's nice and clean. And then I'm gone. So coming to organisations and meeting with people, it allows me to understand what's really going on in the country. It allows me to start asking questions to our clients when I feel that it's needed. Okay, this particular document you can see on the screen there is what we call our Bible. This is the environmental and social policy. So this is what we expect all our projects to meet. We have 10 performance requirements. From those 10 performance requirements, number 2 and number 4 cover things like occupational health and safety and community health and safety. And they're the elements that I tend to actually get involved in ensuring that the companies meet our expectations. Extremely challenging. This can be really difficult because in the first instance, these companies are in such a poor state, they don't meet those requirements. But what we do is ensure that by the end of our investment, that they do. So, just to give you an idea of, from an occupational point of view, what our performance requirements require. We require all companies to identify workplace hazards and control the risks to workers. We do understand sometimes that there'll always be a residual risk present, but it's how they manage that. And there has to be some sort of element of cost-benefit analysis. This is quite a tricky one, and for me, I know many companies that have got fantastic management systems, and there's the bell starters. What I need to do is ensure that obviously the safe systems are working enforced, provide safety training, which I think generally people do, document and analyse work-related accidents and ill health. Now this is an area where I'm concerned about. Sometimes I go to many companies and they turn around to me and says, we've had no accidents this year, but you have 2,000 workers. You've had nothing. So for me, there's a lot of lessons to learn there to understand with regards to accidents and how reporting these accidents, you can identify issues and you can actually correct them before they get worse. And finally, something that I think is probably well covered in most countries, the development of emergency plans to prevent and mitigate and recover from emergency situations. Okay, this is probably the biggest challenge for me. All our projects must meet EU directives. They must meet all the requirements within the EU. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of our projects are outside the EU, so this is a big problem. It's very challenging to turn around to some of the clients because when I say that you must meet EU requirements, well, they turn around and say that, well, I meet national law and that's all I can do. Law, as you know, is in place to regulate social rules, but it should be a minimum acceptable standard. So I'm always pushing clients to ensure that they can improve their standards and meet these EU requirements. And they sign up to agreeing that they will. Because of obviously time's very precious, I'll quickly move on to a few other areas. I won't talk too much about the legal assignments that we recently carried out, but what I will do is tell you a little bit about the general findings from a recent legal study we carried out in 4 different countries. Those countries were Turkey, Ukraine, Kazakhstan and Russia. And what we identified is that the law was very fragmented with weak implementations and very low sanctions. Sometimes it was easier for people to receive a fine rather than put the problem right. That's wrong. Little knowledge on occupational disease within OHS professionals. I think many people understand about safety, but they don't understand too much about health, because sometimes it's not very visible and it takes many years before these conditions really start causing a problem. Little or no guidance on how to achieve the law. The amount of times people have said that you must meet the law, and many people will always turn around and say, well, how do I do it? And I think that is a very valuable point that we should understand. And obviously OHS law is not always relevant or applies in many countries, in many sectors, and something again that needs to be rectified. And these are the particular findings that we found in those countries. Now, a little bit of an overview of what we in EBRD and what we've seen. What is good is we have evidence to show that the projects that we're involved in, whether they're in Russia, whether they're in Macedonia, they are improving because we do hold these clients to the action plans that we develop with them. So we monitor these and we ensure that they're meeting the requirements, which is good. I think we're improving. What's bad is many companies, they continue to think safety as a regulatory issue. They need to start thinking this as more as a business risk. And sometimes when you start talking to employers or clients, when you start talking about money, all of a sudden they start listening. So I think that's an area that really we should concentrate on. And what is ugly, as you know, many serious accidents are still happening, and we're not learning. I see many accidents come across my desk that have occurred on various different projects, and they're the same old things: falling from heights, traffic management, machinery safety, all things that we know exist. Why aren't we doing anything about them? So, I'm going to skip through to the end virtually, but just want to give you a little look of a picture here. And this particular picture was took back in 2010. And it was a project of ours in Belarus. It was a wood processing facility, and as you can see, it looks a bit of a mess, doesn't it? Well, the reason why it's a mess is because there was a dust explosion. 14 people died. 14 people died. And that was one of our projects. Why did it happen? This is something that we've tried to work with the client to try and improve the situation. And even though I've been employed with EBRD and I'm trying to look at these issues, I can't be there at every project. Just like any safety advisor, they can't always be there. But it's not always bad. It's not always bad. Some of the projects that I go to, and this is a picture of one that's in Russia, manufacturing environment, absolutely first class, fantastic, absolutely brilliant. A project a little bit closer to Macedonia, in Serbia, you could see that they'd actually developed systems to try and avoid manual handling, to try and cut down the musculoskeletal disorders with workers. And again, one in Ukraine, I think it is, where they'd introduced one-way systems and traffic management to prevent workers coming into contact with vehicles. Okay, so that was a little bit of an introduction about EBRD. And what I'd like to do is just thank everyone for coming here today. I think there's an awful lot we still need to do. It is a long road, and from my view sometimes it always seems to be getting further. But I think with groups like this joining together and working together, we can tackle some of the serious issues and just think about saving that one life. And I've always said, if I can only save one life in my lifetime, then I will be happy. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much, and thank you very much again for the presenters.